We're not a cult. Let me tell you about the following program. It's just a gathering of like-minded individuals seeking greater personal growth, community, unity, learning, thinking. It's not at all a cult type of cult. No Kool-Aid, no spaceships, no mandatory tracksuits, no squirrel mutilations, no sacrificing goats, mild farm work, no throwing virgins into volcanoes, no shucking off clothing while dancing around a bonfire in the middle of the forest to the beat of a tom-tom, the beat of a tom-tom, the beat of a tom. Joe is not at all the leader of the following. He's just the host. Where's the host?
Here I am, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program, late edition. I am your host, Junior, aka Good Lawgic. I hope you all had a phenomenal day. I apologize for the late start this evening. I had a parental commitment. My son had an accomplished year in school, and I went to honor him. And they had a late night thing, which ended only like at, 10 o'clock. So I came flying on back here to cover for you the news of the day, things going on that I felt you needs to know, because you're my people, and I gotta keep you apprised. Now I will tell you, there's 3 things that we're planning on covering tonight. Not 1, not 2, but 3 different stories that I plan on covering. Number 1, Mitch McConnell. What the hell? What the hell? Is he alive? Is he dead? Is his wife a Chinese spy? Is she? But no. But is she? I know you're thinking, but no, but really. But is she? Some really, really sus activity coming out of the McConnell household, which I will note for the record that she's not known as McConnell. Mrs. McConnell is known as Miss Chow. Miss Chow. I don't know. So we're going to be breaking that down for you. Also, new scandals erupting around Graham Platner. Yeah, you know, the Nazi sort of reformed, please don't call me a Nazi kind of Nazi guy who's running as Democrat candidate for Senate in the state of Maine against GOP incumbent conservative stalwart. Okay, not so stalwart, not so conservative, but certainly longtime incumbent Susan Collins. He's got new scandals erupting around his campaign right now, where he canceled appearances. These are serious allegations, new allegations being raised against him. I called it. I said this when I first was telling you about the Platner scandals. I said after he wins the primary later that week, it's actually like a week later now. Maybe it's 2 weeks later now. And they waited a little bit here. New scandals are dropping. They're dropping, and his campaign is in trouble. Thank God, because that man should be nowhere near elected office of any kind for a platitude of reasons. I can list off like a list of reasons as long as my arm why Graham Platner should never be elected to anything. Oh my God, anything. But apparently now it seems as if some of his scandals are going to be just too much for Democrats who can stomach their share of scandals. Trust me, they're very good at swallowing. Democrats are experts at swallowing big, mighty scandals when they want to. This one might be a little too much for them. Might be a little too big to swallow, even for a Graham Platner. It might be. Finally, Tyler Robinson is having his preliminary hearing this week. Today was day 1. I'm going to catch you up to date on that. And I'm also got a goal tonight tied into that third story, which is I don't know if we're going to hit it because it's late at night. It's late at night. I don't know if we're going to hit it. I'm thinking sort of thinking about live streaming the preliminary hearing tomorrow. That's a big commitment. I'm just like, so that's our goal. And that's why, since it's like, I'm basically saying I'm going to be giving you like, I don't know, 6 hours of work tomorrow. And I don't even know if I'm going to have like 50 people watching me because everyone's got, it's a preliminary hearing. It's not like a hearing. It's not a trial. It's a preliminary hearing. So I'm explaining to you the difference between preliminary hearing and a trial as we go through the coverage as to what unfolded today to catch you up on it. And I'll also break down for you, different yardsticks that apply here and why this preliminary hearing is in certain ways more significant than perhaps any preliminary hearing ever. Although I think the reasons for that are pretty obvious. But that's what I got for you tonight. So the goal is if we get 20 super chats, rumble rants, digger dollars, etc., in quantities of $10 or more, 20 of them. And frankly, I'll tell you right now, if we get a total, I'll go by the total tonight. I was just throwing out a number. Yeah, the total. I'm probably gonna end up doing it. I don't know why. I'm gonna hate myself for it. I know I'm gonna hate myself for it, but I probably will. Anyhow, so if we get that, I will be live streaming day 2 of the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing. And hang out with you fine people as we sit there while testimony is given. This preliminary hearing is supposed to be going on for 5 days, the end of which time Judge Graff is going to be deciding whether or not Tyler Robinson is going to advance to a jury trial to be tried by a jury of his peers with potentially the death penalty on the line for Tyler Robinson. So, serious stuff going on in Utah. Anyhow, so that's the goal. Now you know what we're covering. Now you know what the goal is. Now you know why I'm late. We're pretty much set to go. I think we should just jump in and start talking about Graham Platner. I think that's where we're going to jump. I got a tab open on Graham. We got to go to Graham Platner because this is the tab that's open, Graham Platner. So let's just go right in on Graham Platner. Now, when I first broke down to you, this Nazi scum who one way or another managed to escape vengeance from the Inglorious Bastards. One way or another, he managed to escape it. He managed to escape the Bear Jew. But this guy who has a Totenkopf on the Nazi symbol Totenkopf tattooed onto his chest, because that's not a life choice he's making right there. And then when he learned what it was about, he's like, oh, is that what it means? Is that what it means? I just got that tattooed on randomly. I just thought it looked cool. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know it had symbolism. Who knew it had symbolism? Oh my gosh. So he managed to get that eviscerated from his pectorals. And then there's all sorts of questions as to how he deals with women and basically how does he feel about minorities in general. He's kind of a sick, twisted individual, not to mention that there's all sorts of clips of this guy just ranking on military that he felt it wasn't living up to the standards that he held. He's just a grade A D-bag. I think he's intelligent, and he probably has some level of charisma to him. I'm assuming that just based on the fact that he managed to escape relatively unharmed despite all the baggage around him. Definitely a socialist. There's so many reasons to hate this guy. Well, anyway, breaking Graham Platner was hit with credible allegations of sexual assault as per Politico. Looks like Trump was right about him. He's worse than any human being who has ever run for office. Platner allegedly entered the woman's home uninvited one night in 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. Yeah, sick dude. I got a side eye there by Lady Logic when I read that. I got like a hardcore side eye. I'm just telling you what this schmo did. The alleged victim, who had dated Platner on and off for a few years, then blocked contact with him after telling the encounter was non-consensual. That's not how you spell consensual. Just saying. It's not non-consensual. It's actually an S there. I don't know who spelled it like that, but it was definitely with an S. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful on me, she said. I remember this specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice, the victim told Politico. We're going to go through the whole article. Politico reviewed documents, including emails between the victim and the therapist, messages between the victim and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner several years before he decided to run for U.S. Senate. Let's check out this article in Politico. Let's check it out. We're going to talk about why this timing is coming up. Why is this coming up now? Why is this coming up now, Politico? So we know Politico is an operative of the deep state, of the hardcore Democrat deep states. We know that. Why are you bashing this guy now? I'll watch the stream, but can all the CEO trolls just get insta-banned? No, it's not really my way. I was thinking about going the other way. I'll be honest with you. I had a thought, but I thought it would piss people like you off. My thought was, there's a guy, Diligent Denizen, who I'm friends with. I met the guy when I went down to DC. And he's streaming it on X, and I was thinking about joining with him, and he's got his questions. He has questions, but I have a feeling that if I brought him on and sort of like had him watching with me, which I thought about asking him, I have not asked him yet. I'm not asking him yet. And I'm not saying I'm going to ask him. I really thought about like saying, like, you know, we can have like serious hardcore debates about the evidence that's being presented there. Now, that might tick you off. People like Nana knows there. I'll tell you this much, Nana knows. You know this. I'm a free speech advocate. Unless someone is violating one of my 3 rules of, no spamming, no racism, and no violent terms of service. I'm not even sure what terms of service could be violated outside of spamming and racism, to be honest with you. I got a hard time banning people. I do. I'm telling you now. I don't want to change that. I understand why you're saying it. I get it. I understand why you're saying it. I can't. And I wish I could oblige you, but I can't. I don't think I can. I'm just being real. Tyler trial, don't do it, Good Lawgic. Watching that court is like watching paint dry, not legally very interesting, no charisma in the courtroom. I'm scared. Now you're scaring me that I'm signing myself up for deep levels of pain. Deep levels of pain. Hands One Pack says, he did tell her this is not the gateway type of grief. He almost certainly did. Exclusive. Women who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. The Maine Democrat denied the allegations, of course, and said any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue. That's his claims. Surprise, surprise. He doesn't look the type at all to me. Take one look. Does he look like the type of guy who would force himself on a woman? Yeah. I was being facetious. I was being facetious. Yeah, I mean, he looks like a cartoon character. Not that you should judge a book by its cover, but he looks like the cartoon character for like creepy dude. A woman who dated Maine U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner says he forced her to engage in coitus with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections and allegation Platner denies. The woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassico. So she actually gives her name, which is an unusual thing to happen in a story like this because they're always, referred to as Victim X or Jane Doe, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with the man Rassico dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident and reviewed documents, including emails between Rassico and her therapist and messages between Rassico and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Rassico said she had an on and off relationship with Platner, who's now the Democrat Senate nominee for Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night in late 2021, deeply intoxicated, forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him, and it's not the only thing she wished she cut off, after telling him the encounter was not consensual. Quote, I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful on me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. Platner denied the allegations, although he was so blitz drunk that who knows if he would even know what the hell happened. I don't know, according to her at least. He was very deeply intoxicated, she says. Quote, these allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue, he said in a statement. Yeah, he also said in a statement that he didn't know what a Totenkopf was, and this guy is pretty highly educated, so I got a feeling he's pretty expert at fibbing. We'll just call it fibbing. Rasico previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner to the New York Times, but she said she didn't go public with a specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a grape victim. Rasico said she later felt compelled to go public about her experiences because the reaction to the Times story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. Contacted by Politico, Fifield stood by the allegations she made to the Times and declined to comment further. My part of the story was just a read over, Rasico said in an interview, and the story was Lindsay and the accusation of her being politically motivated. Rasico said she was torn over coming forward in part because she agrees with Platner politically. So she's basically all gung-ho about the insane socialism that he loves. One of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics but not supporting him as a person. Oh, that's pretty sad. She said, I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have a whole scope of who he is as a person. You mean as a rapist, basically. I just want people to just be aware when you cast your vote that this guy kind of rapes women. That's kind of what he does. That's what he does. Just, yeah, well, look, it's you don't just get the socialism. No. It's not just the public who he likes to rape. No. Sick, dude. Oh my God. In his statement, the Platner campaign reiterated his denial and accused critics of trying to drive him out of the race. You think? These allegations are very serious, and Graham vigorously denies them. They're also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. For a year, opponents of his campaign have thrown everything they can at Graham, calling him a Nazi because he is, a war criminal because he might be, and a communist because he definitely is. None of it has been true, and this is no different. What part of it's not true? Which part? He didn't tattoo a Totenkopf on? He doesn't believe in every socialist policy imaginable? What part of this you're saying? I don't know about the war criminal stuff, but what? You might want to be a little more specific. I'm just saying. It's not a coincidence that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. Graham began this campaign to fight for a Maine where everyone is treated with dignity, unless they're ex-girlfriends, and where Mainers are put first, and no amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. Well, some of these desperate smears might. Just say. Platner and Oysterman, I don't believe that's true either, by the way. I think he spent 10 minutes working with oysters, and they call him an oysterman. And political newcomer, when he launched his Senate campaign last August, easily won the Democratic primary last month to face GOP Senator Susan Collins, one of the nation's most highly watched Senate races. His remarkable rise has been tainted by one stinking controversy after another, including offensive online comments. What were those? Well, let's just remind ourselves about that. I got older and became a communist. Those mistaken comments. Whoops. Offensive online comments. Like, same thing. I'm not subscribing to you, CNN. I don't care what you ask. And allegations of past mistreatment of women. He's not previously been accused of sexual assault. The Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran has linked some of his behavior to mental health struggles and alcohol abuse. So you don't have to worry about Graham Platner because it's only when he's drinking or sober that he's really toxic. But he says he's changed. So that must be true. And he's denied previous claims that he was abusive to women because he knows that that's a taboo he cannot overcome. So that's the one he's basically, and also is most challenging for critics to prove. So that's the one. Those are the ones he chooses to deny. Right? You can't deny things that are in print. You can't deny things you said on video. You can't deny the freaking Totten cup that's pinned to your chest for 15 years. Rasica told Politico she connected with Platner on the dating app Bumble in 2019, woe unto her, and had consensual relations with him prior to the night he allegedly assaulted her. That night, in late 2021, she said she exchanged text messages with him and told him not to come over, saying she was not in the mood for company. Later that evening, she said she realized when she heard a sound on the stairs that he had let himself into the house, which was unlocked. Platner came up the stairs. Rascode said, "We need the music. We need like eerie music here. You know, like, I don't know, something from like Saw or like A League of Their Own." Platner came up the stairs, Rascode said, to where she was on the couch. He got on top of her, kept grabbing her, she said, while she repeatedly told him to stop and that she wasn't interested. Rasco said she smelled alcohol on his breath and believed he was almost blackout drunk. So if he's denying it now, why would he? Maybe he just blacked it out. Because Platner ignored her protest and continued to grab her after knocking over an antique sewing kit, spilling small needles everywhere. It's the little details there which really help sell this as being a compelling story. I had been telling him these words like, "No, don't," she recalled. And the look on his face and realizing that was happening, I just realized that, like, I'm in this situation where there's no consent here, she said. Rasco said she tried to separate herself from Platner by telling him she couldn't be in the room anymore, after which he followed her to her bedroom and had coitus with her against her will. She said he also finished inside of her, despite her telling him not to, as she was not using birth control at the time. So he's a complete grade A douche. She went to clean herself up, she said, and when she returned, Platner had fallen asleep. She contemplated waking him up to kick him out, but worried he could hurt someone driving in the state he was in, because he's basically a freaking mess. Following morning, she said, Platner tried to put his arm around her and she pushed him away. She said she asked him whether he remembered what had happened the previous night, according to Rasco. Platner said he didn't remember. So so there you go. So if he's saying it never happened, he just doesn't remember. Rasco said she told him to leave and never contact her again. Rasco said she waited several weeks until she got her period to ensure she wasn't pregnant, then sent Platner a private message on Instagram saying that the encounter was not consensual and she did not want to hear from him ever again. Rasco had no further contact with him after that, she said. Rasco said she later deleted all her texts and social media correspondence with Platner as she tried to move on from the assault, and said she has not been able to recover the Instagram messages she sent him about the incident. In the weeks after the alleged assault, Rasco said she considered going to the police, but struggled with shock and confusion about what had happened to her, did not file a police report. And what happened to believe all women? What happened to believe all women? I don't even know why we need any evidence. It's a woman Hello, woman speaking here. Woman speaking here. Even as time passed, she said she felt uncomfortable potentially telling a police officer about such a personal experience and feared retaliation from Platner. At first, after all, he was a dangerous oysterman. At first, she confided only in her therapist, who she continues to see. Rasco showed Politico recent emails with her therapist, in which Rasco explained she was talking to the media about her relationship with Platner and the SA/rape, using an abbreviation for sexual assault. In other words, this is designed to help confirm. This is to provide corroboration. Now, long ago, she's been telling people about this. This is not some new story she's making up to try and kibosh his political aspirations, but that she has corroborations saying that she's been talking about this attack to others for quite some time. In the message, Rasco was not ready to go public and was seeking help corroborating her account of conversations she was having with reporters in condition of anonymity. The therapist responded that Rasko shouldn't have to speak publicly about a traumatic incident in order to be believed without referencing details of any particular incident. The therapist, Politico, agreed not to name at her request, declined to comment when reached on Monday. She's a useless hack. Rasko also shared, I'm just guessing. Notice how I assumed that the therapist was a woman. Is that wrong of me? I'd bet anything. Rasko shared details about the alleged assaults on the man she dated after Platner. So not just telling one person, but telling two people, and one of whom you would think is one she wouldn't really want to talk to about it, which is her next boyfriend, who she began dating in 2022. The man, who was granted anonymity out of concern for his personal privacy, told Politico that Rasko had told him in bits and pieces about a bad experience with Platner before confiding the full details of what happened in 2023. So we're talking 3 years ago. His account where Rasko told him about the incident matched what Rasko told Politico. Rasko shared with Politico a series of private Facebook messages she exchanged with an acquaintance in 2023, about a year and a half after the alleged assault, and well before Platner launched his political career, in which she cautioned the acquaintance against getting involved with Platner. In the messages, Rasko said she had, quote, ended up in a bad situation with him, describing Platner as consensually careless and saying he doesn't listen to you when drunk. So this is all consistent with what she's saying now. Reached by Politico, the acquaintance said she received the message but declined to comment. She probably dated him because, dating can be tricky in Maine. Politico granted her anonymity at a request to protect the privacy in her Maine community. What's his deal? Shall I not fix up my friend with him, assuming he's similar? He can be charming and funny, and he's decently intelligent person. He's not all bad, but I end up in a bad situation with him, and I will just very politely call him consensually careless at times when drunk. Plus PTSD. I knew about the PTSD. He lies also. Oh, there's more. You think? Force himself on people? Well, what's next? What's next? That's the question, obviously. You don't give us the next one, Politico? Did she say yes? Did she say no? What did she say? I'm curious what she said back to that. It seems like it's not like a one-word answer here. This is a long blue thing over here. Question. This is the question. This is the key question, Politico. Why are you not sharing this with us? Maybe she didn't say yes. I wonder what she said now. Politico also spoke with a friend Rasko had told about the alleged assault last summer, shortly after Platner launched his campaign. The friend, to whom Politico granted anonymity, and there's so many anonymous sources here. I mean, it's shocking we got Rasko's name. Due to fear of social and professional backlash, recalled Rasko telling her about the incident, including that Platner had been very drunk and wouldn't take no for an answer. Rasko said she was contacted by the New York Times in the spring and shared off the record that Platner had assaulted her. She told the Times that she had some positive memories of her relationship with Platner, but that he did not respect women. Cut off contact with him after an incident in 2021 when Platner had come over drunk, but the Times article stated Rasko declined to elaborate about what happened, only describing his behavior as reckless and unsettling. So she's like, I told the Times about it, and they lied because the New York Times is not very much better with the truth than Graham Platner is. And naturally, a spokesperson for the Times declined to comment because they're full of crap and they basically print all the news that's fit to sell their agenda. After the publication of the Times reports, Rasko connected with Cheyenne Hunt. Okay. A progressive Democrat lawyer who founded the nonprofit Reckoning Action, which launched early this year to fight misogyny. Hunt, that's her real name, had endorsed Platner last fall, but renounced her support from him after the Times article previously supported women who came forward with assault allegations against former Representative Eric Swalwell earlier this year, prompting him to drop out of the California gubernatorial primary and resign from Congress. NBC News previously reported that Hunt was working with multiple women who had past relationships with Platner. Hunt connected Politico to Rasico. Reckoning Actions exists to confront misogyny in American life in all forms and manifestations, including bad actors being elected to positions of power. You would think especially, not including, you would think particularly. That's what it should say. But we became aware of allegations before ever being connected with Jenny and have been in contact with multiple women with really troubling allegations, and just became clear that this is someone who's not fit to hold public office. And that's the guy who's not fit to hold public office. After the Times report last month, Platner had said that allegations of physical misconduct were simply not true. His allies seized on Fifield's conservative political affiliations to suggest that her allegations against him in the Times article were motivated by politics. On MS Now last month, after the New York Times report, Platner denied claims that he had physically mistreated women. Anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew what my tattoo was, these are the statements of somebody who's politically motivated. Of course they are. Of course they are. I'm a complete idiot about what I inscribe on my own chest permanently. He told them it's now alluding to unrelated allegations about a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol, not resembling, being a Nazi symbol, not resembling. Platner had the tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol covered up last fall and said he had not known what the symbol meant. Rasico said she was bothered by Platner's public denial that he had been physical towards women. I know that he's capable of putting his hands on women, she said, so I don't believe that to be the truth. It's a weird thing to say, considering she's saying he raped her. You would think not only he's put his hands on people, he rapes them too. But so that's what we got there. That's what we got there. I'm not done with this story yet, though. Don't think I'm done, because I ain't done with you by a damn sight. First, we're gonna go medieval on it. You hear that, homeboy? Me and some of the brothers gonna come down here. Some blow torches. Such a great movie. Such a great movie. For his part, here's Graham Platner.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me.
Liar.
Any accusation of non-consensual behavior
Liar.
is categorically false.
Mm.
Over the last 10 months,
All them women are lying about me.
I've been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me.
You've not been deeply humbled. You're a narcissist of the highest order.
You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics,
is going to give him access to a lot of women.
the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum.
Really broadens his horizons in ways he never deemed possible.
We were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins.
Communist.
So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins.
And the goal of spreading communism everywhere.
Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so.
And he's got lots of tools, and he's determined to use them whenever he damn well pleases.
As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
He doesn't blink once. Doesn't blink once. I don't know why as Maine goes, so goes the nation. I don't know what that means. I mean, I guess that's something you say to folks from Maine. But in what way has that borne out in American history? Please share. I'm very curious. So that's his response. Basically doubling down. Tripling down. This was Ro Khanna a month ago.
Are you confident all the damaging info is out?
That's what he says. My sense is before the primary, a lot of this has come out. Obviously, look, if there was evidence of violence, I would not support him. If there was evidence of sexual assault, I'd have zero support for him.
Are you confident?
Really? Really? Should we see if he said anything today? Let's see if there's anything on this. Oh, I guess he ducked out. I guess he ducked out. See, I picked this up. I set the stream up at 4 o'clock. They tried primarying her, and frankly, in Maine, they're too far left. You can't get rid of her. That's as good a GOP member as you're going to get as Susan Collins. It's pathetic. So far, 3 events have been canceled. There was a recent report published today detailing sexual assault allegations from Jenny Rasco, among others, a woman who said she had an on-off relationship with Platner. Oh, so here he is. He did throw this out. I've been very clear that sexual assault or violence against women is a red line. These allegations are very serious and credible. Graham Platner should drop out of the race. I'm withdrawing my endorsement. Oh, so the Nancy part wasn't enough. Well, there you go. As they start scattering, they're starting to scatter. Poor Graham. Poor Graham Platner. Ruben Gallego withdrew his endorsement. He's like, look, I got my own women problems. I can't be tied up with you, brother. I can't be tied up with you. So far, 3 events have been canceled. And that's step 1. Step 1 is, well, phase 1 is events get canceled. That's what happens. We have all these different tours, engagements, events, they get canceled while I'm issuing denials. Not true, never happened. I'm telling you now, we will see more allegations coming out. This is all time. This is so classic Democratic Party. everything we're seeing here is so classic Democrat Party. And invariably they screw themselves. This is what they did to Bernie Sanders. This is what they do. This is what they did to Swalwell. They have so much dirt on people. And they're basically like, look, we're going to wait until it's the right moment that we can just pop our guy or gal in there that we prefer, that we're hoping can win, and then start dropping all this info. That's why I predicted. As soon as he won the primary, I was like, you'll see you later this week. There's going to be more coming out. They waited a couple of weeks. They did. The reason that they have to get this out now is they can only put in a substitute of their choosing if he drops out before July 12th. So they're up hard against the deadline. They need to chase this boy out now. They need him gone. So I'm sure behind the scenes, they're telling him about all these other different claims that are coming out against him and trying to basically crowbar him out of the race. They're desperately, and that's why they basically went to Ro Khanna and they said, you're going to be withdrawing your support for him. They went to Ruben Gallego and they said, you're going to be withdrawing your support of this guy. That's almost assuredly what happened. We've seen this over and over and over and over and over again. The Democratic Party has their preferred candidates that they want to run. Fortunately, I guess Graham Platner is not one of them. They're not, the powers that be are not quite at that place. And they're basically like, Graham is not our guy. We don't want Graham. So let's start unloading all this stuff now. I'm not fracking around. Commentary saying any Democrat back Graham Platner needs to answer one simple question. What did you know and when did you know it? I don't know why this guy's saying the same thing over and over again. But he has canceled all of his upcoming campaign events ahead of an incoming scandal. That was right before this broke. And then I saw this Maine girl that's gaslighting Graham has a history of gaslighting girls that come forward with stories of sexual trauma, like when he called males and female private spaces at school an invented culture war, despite girls testifying on April 14th to masturbation, voyeurism, violence, mental trauma.
In the stall next to me.
They want us arguing about trans kids in sports, so we don't ask about why the hospital closed. That's the point.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
How is it at the high school level?
At the high school level, like going into the restroom, there were boys in there. I'd walk out from the stall and there'd be a boy in the stall next to me that I didn't know he was in there. But it also happened like vice versa. There would be a trans student who said that they were a male when they were female who would like try to peek over the urinal stalls at the boys. And we actually had a forum in school my junior or sophomore year because of this.
You know, an entire team from Freeport High School, 50 girls, lost a state championship because the boy won the pole vault event, which gives you 10 points, and that girls team lost by 1 point. So, you know, it's one person, that person probably affected at least 100 girls that season.
During high school, I had to share a bathroom with a biological male for nearly a year. I have friends who have had similar experiences in locker rooms. I also know of a team that lost a state championship after points were earned by an athlete who is biologically male.
In 7th grade was the first experience that I really had with a trans person, and it was before gym class, and I walked into the locker room, and there was a biological male standing there, and I was kind of told after that point that, you know, if I wasn't comfortable changing in that locker room, then I would risk being late to class by changing in the individual locker room.
Last year, we were hearing that it was just a couple of students, or it wasn't. Some people say it wasn't really happening. You're saying that it's common?
It's very common. People just don't talk about it because they're afraid of getting in trouble.
It's not afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of basically being blasted by the trans agenda folk.
You said
And labeled a transphobe and basically ostracized from society.
you're an older sister to 3 more female athletes. Is it happening to them in their grade?
Yes, Catherine mentioned a male student masturbating in the female locker room in Hamden, and my sisters have witnessed that. She's a freshman in high school, and she's seen that.
I started competing.
This is sickening. That's so sickening.
Against a trans athlete my junior year of high school in Nordic skiing.
From MDI, where a biological male who was identified as female struck a classmate in the head with a steel water jug, growling as he pinned her down on the sidewalk and gnawed on her eye before grabbing her hair and smashing her head into the concrete. To Hamden Academy, where a boy masturbates in the girls' bathroom regularly. To the pool in Hamden, where a fully grown man has walked directly into the women's locker room. A female inmate in the Maine State Prison has written about facing assault, intimidation, and sexual harassment at the hands of a 250-pound male murderer who is pretending to be female.
I lost to him.
Yeah, it's all an invented thing. That's what he says. It's an invented thing. You can't just. What's with this? Oh, I gotta block this guy. Yeah, so Ro Khanna's out, and we'll see if Bernie Sanders. Where's Bernie Sanders on this? Let's see where Bernie Sanders is on this. Fetterman calls out Bernie Sanders for refusing to pull his endorsement of Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner. See, because from Bernie's perspective, he's like, I saw what the Democratic Party did to me. They're doing the same thing to him. They're doing the same thing to him. I saw what they did to me. Let's hear from Fetterman.
Refuse to overlook that, but honestly, I would really call Bernie Sanders to apologize for pushing this kind of predator more than anyone. He helped him elect, and now apologize to the victims, especially the woman that she claimed that he raped her. So I don't know why you want to keep pushing these kinds of people. Maybe he should consider set a few out and stop pushing these kind of communists and people. And now people, like P. Hustle now, he has been credibly accused of rape. And that's fairly recent too. That was only less than 5 years ago. Refused to.
Fetterman reminding us that he would be an infinitely better speaker of a Senate Majority Leader than John Thune. Look at this timeline of progressive endorsements. Even Senator Warren, of course, Ro Khanna. I blame Maine voters who re-elected Creepy Collins repeatedly since 1996. Endorsement from Bernie Sanders on August 30th. Public red flags. News organizations reporting years of offensive Reddit posts attributed to Platner, including comments about race, sexual assault victims, law enforcement, and political violence. Days later, the public learned about Platner's Totenkopf tattoo, a death's head, symbol historically associated with Nazi SS units. Platner said he did not understand its history and later had the tattoo covered. February 2026, public red flag. Platner is criticized for sharing content originating from anti-Semitic commentator Stu Peters before deleting the post and saying he hadn't recognized the original source. Senator Martin Heinrich publicly endorses him. March 2nd, Ruben Gallego endorses Platner. Then Elizabeth Warren on March 19th. Then there's another red flag, questions regarding aspects of Platner's personal narrative and credibility, including claims about the educational background and campaign, later acknowledged were inaccurate. Public red flag on May 2026. Reports reveal that Platner exchanged sexually explicit text messages with multiple women while married. And then May 28th, by late May, Platner's offensive Reddit history, time calf tattoo, controversy, and the anti-Semitic social media incident were all part of the public record. When asked whether those controversies had changed the view of Platner, Senator Chris Murphy made clear they had not. I'm supporting him. Of course you are. Of course you are. One united blue wall. That's what they are. One united blue wall. After reports surfaced on June 1st that Platner had exchanged explicit text messages with multiple women while married, Bernie Sanders asked whether he was reconsidering his endorsement. He wasn't. No, I think that he's going to be a great candidate. Former partners publicly described behavior they characterized as abusive and toxic. Ro publicly stood by Graham Platner. It's delicious. They will forgive any sin as long as they think you can help the party. That's what it boils down to. They'll forgive any sin as long as they think can help the party. I'll tell you right now, my prediction is this. There's more to come. There's more to come. And it'll probably come very, very soon because they're running out of time. I think they want him gone. And either he drops out of the race or more stories will come out. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Now, he strikes me. There's something about him which strikes me as someone who's basically willing to say F you to the Democrat Party and say, I'm not dropping out before July 12th. So I would imagine that behind the scenes, there's like a game of chicken going on right now between Graham Platner and the Democratic Party. Because they very clearly want him out. Politico wouldn't be dropping this story unless they wanted him out. They very, very definitely want him out. He very definitely does not want to step aside. And I think they're in a game of chicken where the Democratic Party is telling him, we got more on you. This was the first shot. You better drop out. And he's probably saying, bring it. But he's canceling his appointments because he's trying to figure out, how do I deal with with questions that come at me about this thing? Is there anything more I can say besides just flat out deny, 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 deny? So, and blame the GOP. Especially because they have all this corroborating evidence that she's been complaining about this since long before he was running for Senate. That's why that corroborating evidence is very damning. Because what do you mean that she's making this up now because she's trying to kibosh your political career? She was talking about this to folks years before you were running for office. So you're kind of in a weak position there to claim that this is all manufactured in some sort of elaborate hoax to bring down your political career, when she was talking about all these horrible things you were doing back in 2023. So I think he's trying to figure out how to deal with these allegations, and also wondering what else the DNC is going to throw at him. But the DNC definitely seems to not want this guy. They seem to be, it's unclear whether they're afraid that he cannot win because of the baggage, or whether they're afraid they just don't like his politics because he's too far socialist for them. Either one is possible, and it could be a little from column A and a little from column B. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think on that. Feel free to weigh on in. What do we have next? Oh, yes, this guy. Yertle the Turtle, Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, Cocaine Mitch. So this is how the story came to me. Now, over the last week or so, I've brought to you a couple of stories from Desiree Townsend, who's been investigating the health of Mitch McConnell. And how he had some sort of an emergency episode on June 14th, which is now more than 3.5 weeks ago. And no one's seen from him since. John Thune claims he spoke to him on June 15th, And no one's seen the guy. No one's seen him. Now, some folks claim that there's some sort of deadline of August 3rd, whereby they would have to have Kentucky would have to replace someone new this term if, in fact, something happened to him, like if he died. Imagine he were to, Grim Reaper was basically to come and say, dude, you are so past your due date, and just come and collect that black in the heart of his. Well, if it happens before, some folks claim if it happens before August 3rd, that under Kentucky law, they have to replace him this term. But after August 3rd, they can just kick it down until next term. And that the GOP doesn't want that. Some folks also claim Thomas Massie would likely run, and there's a concern that Thomas Massie would end up in the Senate if, in fact, such a thing were to happen. This claim that I saw is stupid on countless bases. But I am starting to question whether or not Mitch McConnell is still breathing air. And then there was this. And this, because the cover-up seems bizarre, and then things get weirder that's just the beginning of the weirdness, because there's a lot more weirdness related to Mrs. McConnell. 3 days after Mitch McConnell was found unconscious and hospitalized, his wife, a private citizen, traveled to Beijing to meet with CCP leadership, including Chinese Vice President Han Zheng. Why is she meeting with CCP? Why do it with her husband still hospitalized? What the hell is going on? What is going on? That's very strange. That's his wife, which obviously you can see that this is, the two of them, their eyes met across the room, and it was just love at first sight. You can tell that. That's his wife, Chow. Yes. Who, as soon as her husband gets hospitalized, unconscious, hospitalized, 3 days later, is in Beijing meeting with Xi's vice president. She is Chinese. And all sorts of people have questions as to what the hell is going on. Kylie J. Jane Creamer, reporting, I think the whole situation surrounding Mitch McConnell just became far more serious. What authority was Elaine Chao acting under when she met with a senior CCP while her husband, a sitting U.S. senator, was hospitalized following a reported medical emergency? Elaine Chao hasn't held a U.S. government position since January 7, 2021, when she resigned as Secretary of Transportation. She was Secretary of Transportation? What? The Logan Act, under Trump, she was Secretary. No, that was under January 7, 2021. Yeah, that's under Trump. When she resigned as Secretary of Transportation, the Logan Act prohibits unauthorized private citizens from conducting correspondence negotiations with foreign governments regarding disputes or matters involving the United States. Also, why Secretary of Transportation? That's such an interesting position for someone who has ties to the CCP. If Elaine Chao was representing the United States with authorization from the U.S. Government, the State Department should say so. If she was acting solely as a private citizen while discussing U.S.-China relations with senior Chinese officials, it raises legitimate questions about whether the Logan Act could apply. Logan Act, which prohibits private citizens from meeting and discussing government matters with foreign government agents. The State Department should immediately explain whether this meeting was officially sanctioned, what capacity Elaine Chao was serving in, and whether she had authorization to engage in those discussions. President Trump has previously criticized Elaine Chao over her family's business ties to China. Regardless of politics, American people deserve transparency about the purpose of this meeting, 100%, obviously. These questions are even more important because there are still serious unanswered questions about Senator McConnell's condition. We still don't know what the status of sitting U.S. Senator was while his wife was meeting with CCP. We don't know what the status is today. No one knows. Do you think he's alive? I don't know. I really question it. Finally, has anyone confirmed? I'll tell you this much. I don't think he's conscious. I don't know if he's alive or not. I do not believe he's conscious. Maybe he's in a coma. Maybe it's an induced coma. Maybe it's not an induced coma. I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, I will bet anything. I'm going to go on record right now. I'm making a bet. I'm making a prediction. Okay? You will never, ever hear Mitch McConnell's voice again. Okay? I don't know. I'm telling you, that's my prediction. I think that this guy has breathed his last conscious moment on earth, given everything that's going on. A man that age, don't go unconscious for weeks on end and then, come back into the light. And if he was conscious, I am positive we would have heard from him. Unless, literally like gibbering, like which that would suit him perfectly. It would actually be just desserts. You've heard me speak ill of Mitch McConnell in the past. In case it's unclear, I'm not a fan. He's terribly vile human being. I don't know if I made that clear or not. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. I don't like Mitch McConnell. Finally, has anyone confirmed whether she's returned to the United States? If so, when? If not, where is she now? This is a national security issue. American people deserve answers. That's the Logan Act, 18 U.S.C. 953. That without the authority of the United States, you can't influence the measures of conduct of any foreign government. You're just not allowed to do that. It's a 3-year penalty. You might not know much about Elaine Chao. You probably don't know. Many of you probably don't know much about Elaine Chao. Rest assured, don't worry. She has her own website. It's the Elaine Chao website. This is true. This is not made up. This is her website, which is filled with classic propaganda that you would expect a good Chinese woman to have. A public figure Chinese individual to have. This is the most propaganda type of thing you can possibly imagine. Everything about this website just smells like utter propaganda. This is her working with United Way of America, President Chief Executive Officer Elaine Chao visiting with children at the United Way funded center. And there she is, as Secretary of the 24th U.S. Secretary of Labor, first American woman of Asian heritage to be appointed as President's cabinet. U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, is a strong advocate for safety and the importance of innovation and infrastructure in America's economic competitiveness and growth. Former Peace Corps Director Elaine Chao giving keynote remarks at the 50th anniversary of the inaugural address of President John F. Kennedy. First Asian American woman ever appointed to the President's cabinet in American history, and longest serving cabinet member since World War II. That is Elaine Chao. Welcome. Elaine Chao is one of the most interesting, inspiring, and consequential leaders of our country. So she says. Now she's meeting with the CCP. But she tells us, in case you were unsure, that she is one of the most interesting, inspiring, and consequential leaders in our country. You never heard of her 10 minutes ago, but she's one of the most consequential leaders in our country. Among the very few Americans who have been supported by 2 presidential cabinet positions, U.S. Secretary of Transportation, U.S. Secretary of Labor. In fact, she's the first Asian American woman to be appointed to the President's cabinet in U.S. history. Chao, also President and CEO of the United Way and Director of the Peace Corps, previously served as Deputy Secretary of Transportation, Chair, Federal Maritime Commission, Deputy Maritime Administrator, and White House Fellow. She was an immigrant arriving here at age 8, not knowing how to speak English. The next thing you know, she's married to the most powerful senator in the country. She received her citizenship at the age of 19, continued at Harvard Business School, recipient of 37 honorary doctorate degrees. 37 honorary doctorate degrees. So everyone wants to kiss her butt. In recognition of her many contributions to the country, she's the eldest of 6 daughters of Dr. James S. Chao and the late Miss Ruth Mulan Chu Chao. And look at the investment into her PR.
I remember leaving with my mother to take the midnight train to go from Taipei to Kaohsiung. And I remember staring out the window and reflecting upon what I was leaving behind. But it was wonderful also that we were going to be going to America.
They were going to be spies.
And being reunited with our father.
And I want to be clear here. I'm just speculating that she's a spy. I have no more knowledge than what I'm sharing with you. So this is pure speculation. I don't know that she's a spy. I don't. I have a lot of questions about if she's, these reports are accurate, that she's meeting with the CCP while her husband is presumably unconscious.
I never met an American before I came to America. And yet I knew. Somehow, I knew, like everybody else knows around the world, that America stands for freedom.
Anyhow, that's enough of you. George Bush said of her, "I'm proud that Lane served with great distinction as the Secretary of Labor during my administration." And Mrs. McConnell also served, got talked into being the Secretary of Transportation under Trump. So she resigned on January 7th, the day after January 6th, when her husband was about to stab Trump in the back. And fortunately did not have the foresight to get the Senate to convict him on the impeachment, because he could have, but was too stupid. Thank God for that. But Kylie Jane Creamer also said if Mitch McConnell dies before August 3rd, Kentucky law would trigger a special election for his Senate seat. This is up for debate. This is her read of it. It's not so clear, though. The rhinos in power can't afford for that to happen, which is why this whole situation feels like weekend at Bernie's. Weeks have gone by with virtually no meaningful update on the condition of the sitting U.S. Senator. The lack of transparency has been outrageous, has left people wondering whether he's being kept alive on life support, whether the full truth simply isn't being told. Has he already passed? No one knows. Then there's Elaine Chao, McConnell's wife, traveling to China to meet with CCP leader just days after McConnell was hospitalized. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe the timing is undeniable, but the timing is undeniably odd. Would you leave your husband to travel to China if he's so ill he's in a hospital for over 20 days? I sure wouldn't. Something about this entire situation doesn't add up, and the American people deserve answers. So finally, the media is starting to sniff around, asking questions about where the hell is Mitch McConnell. Now, Desiree Townsend reported that he's in George Washington University Hospital. And then we have this comment here from somebody who claims to be a Republican. So Republican Senator Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, the lone vote stopping the Save America Act, has been seen alive in a few weeks. Just 3 days after, as we said, his wife flew to Beijing for meetings with CCP leadership. She's getting her orders from her handlers there on what to do next, which documents to burn, and what new game plan should be. Senator McConnell's wife, you would understand, by the way, that she wouldn't want to have those conversations over the phone, right? She'd rather have them in person. McConnell's wife is the daughter of Chinese billionaires who own the biggest shipping and trade company in Taiwan. Oh, maybe that's why Mitch McConnell basically had Trump make her Secretary of Transportation, because her billionaire parents are big-time shippers for Xi. This isn't at all a conflict. It's definitely suspicious that she got on a plane and left the country after her husband was found unconscious and needed life-saving measures. Over the past year, the 84-year-old Senator McConnell hasn't been able to walk by himself, hasn't been able to speak, hasn't been able to run his own committee without staffers instructing him. It's been weeks since anyone has seen him, yet it's his vote that's stopping President Trump's Save America Act from passing. And don't think that she's not without her own scandals. She's had her share of scandals. This, this leader, this wonderful, amazing, remarkable leader, this consequential leader of our country that you never heard of. Yeah, this consequential leader of our country So she's had her share of scandals. I actually asked Grok just to list off her scandals. It's interesting that she never changed her name to McConnell, isn't it? So here's her scandals according to Grok. We'll break it down because Grok, when you first ask Grok about Elaine Chao, they're as effusive as her website is. And then you say, you just have to ask one word. I just said scandals. See? So here's the list. Some of these seem relatively inconsequential. Some of them seem bigger and bigger. The Department of Transportation Office of Inspector General report detailed multiple instances where Chao directed agency staff to handle personal and family-related tasks. All right, I don't really get bogged down over that. It's wrong. You're not supposed to do that, and it's it's an ugly thing. But that's not something that's of national consequence. You know what I'm saying? So to me, while I think that she should be properly handled for that, like FedEx and Christmas ornaments to her father and sisters with cover notes, or researching repairs on a store item her father bought years earlier and pushing for faster service. So she's definitely staying in close ties with her parents, researching purchasing personal items online, using shipping codes on her personal card, getting signed photos of her father from celebrities, and uploading them to a shared DOT drive under Dr. Chao folder. So a little sloppiness there from our very consequential leader. But these are all relatively minor things. Then you get to number 2, boosting her family's shipping company. Oh, okay. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Because understand, in China, President Xi is getting his cut there. Her father founded Foremost Group, a dry bulk shipping firm with heavy China business. One period showed 72% of tonnage to and from China. 72% of all shipments coming through him. Chao has said she has no ownership or involvement. No ownership or involvement. But during her DOT tenure, she did multiple interviews with events alongside her father that boosted the company's profits, planned to include family members, father, sister, Angela, who ran the company, and others on an official 2017 U.S.-China transportation trip with DOT provided logistics. So she's basically helping her father's company. And events were tied to family-funded sites and included book signings for her father's bio. An internal ethics memo warned that this would give inappropriate advantage in the form of publicity to Secretary Chao's family business. The trip was canceled after State Department embassy ethics concerns were raised. Staff coordinated media remarks and coverage emphasizing the family story of Foremost related spots. So she seems to be using her position to help enrich her father's business. The OIG investigated this under misuse of position rules, referred for possible criminal review. The DOJ declined to prosecute. Then there's favoritism for Kentucky, her husband's home state. Designated a former McConnell campaign staffer as a special Kentucky liaison point of contact. Disproportionate meetings with Kentucky officials early on. Specific big grants had incomplete applications that got extra chances to fix issues with which while others didn't. showing unfairness. Nearly $80 million in various DOT funding flowed to Kentucky projects during her tenure. OIG looked into aspects some later reviews found no outright irregularities in grant awards themselves, but the optics and special treatment process drew heavy criticism, especially pre-2020 election when he's running for re-election. And the next thing you know, she, as the head of the Department of Transportation, is making Kentuckians very happy. So, yeah, that seems like a pretty serious thing where she's basically bribing Kentucky to vote for her husband in her role as Department of Transportation. Then you have her financial disclosure stock issues. She held Vulcan Materials stock, a company that could benefit from DOT infrastructure work, past her pledged divestment deadline and sold it later after reporting. This was part of the broader House oversight investigation into her business ties. And then you have this now, what's going on, where she's running off to China. While her husband is dead or dying or something, but seriously ill, and she's running to meet with people in China. Why? What is she meeting with people in China about? This is something that, this is the sort of thing where I think a Senate hearing or House hearing would be in order. I think that would be appropriate here, don't you? Doesn't that make sense that there should be some sort of hearing? Wouldn't you think? This is the sort of thing I'd love to see her, give answers for. What's happening? Why were you going to China? What's the deal? I mean, seriously, who the hell runs to China? That's where you go? When your husband was laid up, collapsed and was unconscious and brought to a hospital, and 3 days later you're meeting with the Chinese vice president? How does this not smell like there's something very, very shady going on here? So is she a Chinese spy? I don't know. I know as much as you do.
Gotta go!
Okay. I'm ending my poll here. 68% of you saying you'll watch my coverage. That sounds like a couple hundred people. That's something. I was warned not to go there. Joe was telling me you don't want this, Joey. Jim tells you. Thank you for the 20. Saying the law in Kentucky was changed after Andy Beshear was elected. The governor picks the replacement from a list of 3 candidates chosen by the state legislature, who serves until the next regular election cycle. So they give him 3 choices, and he picks. Interesting. So my question for you is, do you think she's a spy? You can drop a comment. I'm going to throw up in the thing here. Engage with your audience. And maybe spy is not the right word. Maybe they'll frame it better. Do you think Elaine Chao has improper ties to Chinese government? Yes or just yes or no? I'll give you some of you an opt-out. I'll give you yes, no, and too little info to hazard a guess. We'll put it that way. So you all can vote. Let's check the ghetto. Let's check on the ghetto. Hands on back says Cocaine Mitch also had yellow fever. I hope he does not drop out. I hate Collins, but we'll take her, and she would win. She could win against this creep. I think she could win against anyone. JH12X says, Joe, I'm really confused. Democrat, rapist, child molester, adulterer. The terms are all interchangeable. Platner invokes everything I believe about the Democratic Party. He should run. He's Newsom. Nice. Nice. Hands one else says, I do like how they changed grape to non-consensual lovemaking. It's so much worse and creepier way of saying it. It really is. It really is. Let me go visit my diggers. Did I not open this up? I did open it. Okay, good. I'm just there visiting myself. I'm not visiting myself. Fans there. Right, so I should remind you all that I live on likes. Like my channel like lives and dies on likes and shares and comments. It really does. But if that's not enough for you, if you feel you're not sufficiently invested in the channel just by hitting like and subscribe and dropping comments and all that other good stuff, and you feel a need for more, I understand that. And I'm here to help address those needs. I'm sharing with you Good Lawgic merch store, which this week only, everything is 25% off. Use the code USA250. And in celebration of that, of the 250th anniversary, I'm giving you a 25% discount. So whether you're looking for a hat, the little Good Lawgic signature on the back of it, one of your good evening mugs from Good Lawgic, look at that, look at that. Fine, look at that fine mug. We got merch. We got the following not a cult type of cult mug. That's a fine looking mug right there. Yeah, there you go. So check that out. And right now, 25% off. That means that this mug is in $16, $12. It's like it's a joke. It's nothing. It's nothing. So make sure that you check it out this week. And use that code. Tell them Joe sent you. I don't know who you would tell, but tell your friends. Makes a great gift. It's perfect for weddings, bar mitzvahs. I don't know why. I guess it's perfect for weddings if you want to step on it. That'd be good. That'll work. You can, the end of your wedding, and scream l'chaim. You can do that. But yeah. So make sure you check that out for all your merch needs. And finally tonight, we got this. Tyler Robinson. You remember that guy? Yeah, that Tyler Robinson. Alleged Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson is going through his preliminary hearing this week. It commenced today. What is a preliminary hearing, Joe? Well, that is an opportunity for the defendant to avoid trial if he can manage to get past and say a reasonable jury. If he can say there's no probable cause. What's probable cause? Most people would say more likely than not that he did it. Obviously a much lower bar than guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Why is this week of testimony particularly interesting? Why is everyone talking about this? Well, that's because really of Candace Owens and her and countless others who seem desperate to establish that Tyler Robinson either didn't do it or he was a patsy for someone else, and start basically trying to throw a monkey wrench into the prosecution of Tyler Robinson. Because during the course of this 5-day hearing, we will be hearing testimony and seeing what evidence is being presented to help support the claim that Tyler Robinson is, in fact, guilty and ultimately can be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of his peers. Now, some of the differences in preliminary hearing, for example, there is cross-examination from the defense, not like a grand jury proceeding in that regard. But hearsay is admissible here. And the yardstick for what evidence is allowed in, for example, he cannot object saying that evidence has to be withheld because it's because of violations of search and seizure. Like, that's not a valid objection. Lack of due process is not a valid objection to evidence that would be submitted at a preliminary hearing in Utah. So the prosecutor has a lower threshold and an easier time reaching that threshold. So a finding that he's going to advance in no way means that he's going to be found guilty by a jury of his peers beyond a reasonable doubt, because at an actual trial, the prosecutor would presumably not be able to use certain information, certain types of testimony that he can use here. Plus, the yardstick is obviously significantly lower. Now, I personally have a question as to whether folks are so strict about that, whether they really say, like, when they're like, I think he did it. When you have a jury, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. When they have a jury that basically most of them are like, yeah, I think he did it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did it. And my gut says a lot of them are going to not say, but I don't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, so I'm going to find not guilty. I think people like you watching this show are way more likely to say that's not high enough and it's not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'm saying not guilty. My gut says that most people are not like you. I think you're special. I think you're smarter than most people. And that's why I think you're also more devout to constitutional values than your typical American citizen. So I question whether juries are as meticulous about drawing the distinction between probable and beyond a reasonable doubt. Which is one of the reasons that you're basically sitting there hoping that a judge will get you off on probable cause. You say it's not more likely than not that he did it. But it's obviously more challenging for the defense to do that at this stage. One of the reasons that this particular preliminary hearing, as I said, is so significant is because now we're basically getting most, if not everything, that the prosecution has as to why it is that they think he did it. There's been so much speculation about Egyptian planes and TPUSA being involved and Erica Kirk being the murderer or whatever stupid, crazy nonsense manages to float through Candace Owens' brain that she can throw out at her audience and then be regurgitated by countless hacks who are looking for clicks and goodies like that and all the trappings of fame and money that come with that. So this would go a long way towards either providing them with fodder or starting to shut them up. So let's talk about what they have. I'm going to break down what today was day one of the hearing. I'm very strongly leaning, even though it doesn't seem like we're going to make our goal tonight. I'd be very surprised if we hit our goal. The only way we'll hit our goal at this point is if someone comes in as a miracle man here and is like basically like, Joe, let me sub up like 30 new members here for you or something of that kind. Or it sounds like a very generous thing on PayPal. But I'm still strongly considering streaming this. I just will feel like less committed that I have to do it. So I would ask you to check out goodlawgic.locals.com because there's a very good chance I'll be covering significant portions. If I actually hit the yardstick tonight, which again I don't expect to, I kind of figured I wouldn't because it's late night show. You tend to have lower number of chats, but I then I would feel committed, like I have to do this because I said I would. But now, like I sort of feel as if I have a lot more leeway to sort of see how it goes, and maybe do it. I don't know. See how much interest is generated and how bored I am. So, but I want to break down for you what happened today on day one. So this way, in case we go forward tomorrow, and this way you get caught up as to what they were able to prove so far. So you're sort of caught up with the day's events with respect to this preliminary hearing. What do you got for me, Richard? Joe, did you compliment me after I hung up last night? Hard to make out, but it sounded like you all said that was a very Jewish thing to say. I did. I did. Because the last thing I was making a joke. But yes, I did. It was a compliment. I did say that. I said that was a very Jewish thing to say. Because I think right before you hung up, you were commenting about how you bought from my merch store right before I had a discount. And yeah, honestly, I wouldn't even mind giving you like the discount back. I just don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how I would do it. Like that's all like gets processed through so many different hands before it gets to me. I don't even know how to do that. But and it's not like it's not like it's like an extra $100 in savings or something. So anyway, so that's why I made a comment. Like I was like, wow, that was a very Jewish thing. It's really a joke at my own expense. But let's talk about what's going on in the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing so far. So this is brought by WRAL News, which is out of Utah, I believe. Prosecutors they basically went backwards, right? So in other words, they just started adding more and more as things were going on. So we're going to be working our way upwards here. So authorities have said DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the trigger on the rifle. This is before today's events. So a lot of people say there's no DNA. Well, authorities have said DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger of the rifle used to kill Kirk, and a fired cartridge casing, 2 unfired cartridges, and a towel used to wrap the rifle. So his DNA is on a towel around the rifle. Robinson's parents had confronted him after the authorities released a surveillance photo of the suspect and details about the rifle, authorities have said. His parents convinced him to meet with a family friend, a retired sheriff's deputy who reportedly helped arrange for Robinson to turn himself in. Prosecutors said Robinson left a note for his roommate, who was also his romantic partner, that read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." They also said he wrote to his roommate in a text message about Kirk, "I had enough of his hatred, of this. Some hate can't be negotiated out." As well you should have. As well you should have. It was, how could it be anything but coming from me? Defense attorneys unsuccessfully sought to block prosecutors from using recorded statements from Robinson's roommate during the hearing. The defense wanted the roommate to testify in person so Robinson could exercise the right to challenge the credibility of the witness against him. So they're like, why are you allowing in these recorded statements? Just have him come testify so we can cross-examine him. At trial, that's how it would work, but at a preliminary hearing, prosecutors can get away with this for now. And you can understand why strategically the prosecutors would not want him to get up on the stand. Every time he takes the stand, it's another opportunity. Let me just explain something to you about testimony in general so you can understand what their thinking is and why they'd rather use the recording. Whenever someone is thinking back about something and telling a story over it, if they're telling the truth, there will continually be changes in what they said. If they're lying and the story is rehearsed lie, it will be far more consistent. I know this is counterintuitive. You think to yourself, well, if someone's telling the truth, is always going to tell the same story over the same way. No. Because when you're thinking back to something and you're telling the truth, some details might come to you at some points that don't come at other points. So that's actually indicia that they're telling the truth. However, an intelligent defense attorney, which you always assume that your adversary is intelligent, and certainly all the Looney Tunes who are convinced that this was some sort of, I don't know, Israel doing it, or some other deep state actors who are looking to take down Charlie Kirk, are going to find those distinctions and say, you see, last time he said that he took 2 steps up onto the roof, and this time he said he took 4. How would someone get that wrong? Why is he changing? Oh, no, the reason he's changing his story is because now he thinks it's stronger. And it's like, no, people, when they're remembering it over, they sort of think it through differently in their heads. That's just a natural thing. So if you are the government, you want these people to testify as infrequently as possible. Whatever recordings you can use those. So this way, it's less likely that there's going to be a problem. Less likely that they're going to contradict themselves in a way that actually would show they're telling the truth, but would be picked apart and dissected and say, aha, I got questions. That's what you know the other side's going to do. And this is not simply about Tyler Robinson, although obviously he is the key component here. But it's not simply about Tyler Robinson. If you're the district attorney's office, part of your objective here is trying to help Erica Kirk find peace. Yes, your primary duty is to the state and all the people of the state of Utah. But Utah, in particular, seems to have an affinity and regard for the victims, the relatives of the victim of a homicide, and accordingly, and we know this because they actually give the relatives an opportunity to push for an expedited trial. So we see that Utah shows a particular regard for the relatives of a victim. And once we go down this road, it's then, considering that it's Erica Kirk and you're talking about a pretty bloody red state, you can imagine that they're probably interested in trying to help quell some of those angry voices and put on a compelling case that Tyler Robinson is the one who did it. So all of these are reasons for them to avoid certainly putting his boyfriend on the stand more often than they have to, and taking use of the rules of preliminary hearings that they can use hearsay, because a recorded statement is hearsay. Yes, I'm going to say that again for those of you unfamiliar with rules of evidence. A recorded statement is hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement that is being offered in courts for the purposes of establishing the truth of the matter asserted therein. The last part of that is confusing. So I'm going to just explain it to you so you can understand it a little better. What does that mean, the truth of the matter asserted therein? When someone makes a statement, like if I come into court and I tell you, I was sitting in my office and Roger Johnson walked into my office and said, "It is pouring cats and dogs outside." We assess now, so you can understand, that sounds like I'm saying hearsay. I'm repeating over his out-of-court statements. And often it will be. If I'm trying to, and the question is, why are we having me repeat over what Roger Johnson said? If, in fact, it's to establish the truth of the matter asserted, what is the truth of the matter asserted and what I'm testifying about? The truth of the matter asserted is that, in fact, it is raining. How did I know it was raining? Well, Roger Johnson walked into my office and said, "It's raining cats and dogs outside." So now that is me basically telling you, how do I know it's raining? Why should you think it's raining? Why do you believe it's raining at that time when he walked into my office? Well, he came in and said, "It's raining cats and dogs." That's hearsay. Because we're trying to get you, the listener, to trust the truth of this statement that was made by Roger Johnson that indeed it's raining. That's what makes it hearsay. But if the reason that I am saying this is introduced for something else, maybe the reason that the district attorney or whoever's put me on direct is having me testify, Roger Johnson came into my office and said it's raining cats and dogs, is for the purpose not of letting you know that it was raining. No one gives a damn if it was raining, but it's to establish that Roger Johnson speaks English. Roger Johnson was conscious. Roger Johnson is someone who I've met before. Whether it's raining, whether it's not raining, no one cares about that. Assuming no one cares about that fact as to it's raining, it could be sunny, it could be snowing, it could be a hurricane out there, there could be freaking Dorothy and the witch spinning around in a tornado. No one cares about that part of it. All we care about is, does he speak English? I'm trying to prove to you, yes, he definitely speaks English because he came and he speaks English well because he's even using idioms and coming in here saying it's raining cats and dogs outside. So if the reason that I'm coming in and testifying that he made that statement is not to prove to you that there was inclement weather or to give you any insight as to whether it was raining or sunny, but the reason is to establish that he speaks English or that I'm not deaf. You know that I wasn't deaf at that time on that day because I heard him say it's raining cats and dogs. So there could be a lot of different reasons that I'm testifying about it. And some of those reasons would be deemed hearsay. Most of the time, it would be deemed hearsay because why would I be telling you his statement? Most of the time, it's because I want you to trust the fact that it was raining based on this out-of-court statement. And that's why that would be hearsay. So the way the conversation would happen in court is I would say Roger Johnson came in and said it's raining cats and dogs outside. The other side, who's looking to cross-examine me, would say objection, hearsay, or stop me before I start making the statements. And then the person who's asking me questions on direct would say, no, it's not hearsay. It's being offered to establish that Roger Johnson speaks English. It's being offered to establish that Joe wasn't deaf on that day. So, and we don't care whether or not it's raining. So in that case, it's not looking to establish the truth of the matter asserted in the statement. The truth of the matter asserted in the statement is that it's raining cats and dogs. If you don't care about the truth of that statement, could be a lie. We don't care. So in that case, it would not be a hearsay problem. So a little tangent there where I'm teaching you how rules of evidence operate. So yes, a recorded statement by furry boyfriend of Tyler Robinson, you're going to be wanting the judge to trust that the things he's saying in that statement are true. So he makes a statement, I got a text from Tyler at 11:04 p.m. where he said, I'm really sorry. You want the judge to believe the truth is that, yes, he really did get that text. And the words in those texts were not, I just bought a new frying pan or whatever, or that he knows how to send texts. But you want the trier of fact to trust that, in fact, Tyler Robinson made that statement. He received that statement from Tyler Robinson. So now that would be a classic hearsay thing, where in order to bring it in, you would need to have boyfriend take the stand. And I'll go one step further. When it comes to text message, if he says, I got a text from Bob Petrie saying XYZ, then, and it's not Tyler Robinson's text, but someone else, there would also be a hearsay statement. Because when Tyler sends a statement saying, I'm really sorry, I had to kill him, or something to that effect, you can't get rid of hate. Isn't that, you can ask a question, isn't that hearsay that you're saying this is what Tyler Robinson said outside of court and you want the judge to believe that Tyler Robinson actually said those words? And you're right, it would be a hearsay problem, but there are exceptions to hearsay where if it's an admission by a party opponent or a statement against interest by the defense counsel, we say you can bring that in, that's exception. Because Tyler Robinson, if he wanted to, could take the stand and say, I never said that. And in a civil matter, if it's a declaration against interest or an admission by a party opponent, that too, you say, get up on the stand and contradict them. So those are considered exceptions to hearsay. But over here in a preliminary hearing, the hearsay objection flatlines. There is no hearsay objection. Judge says, I don't care if it's hearsay. I'm still going to listen to it. That's what he's supposed to do. So the defense wanted the room to testify in person, so Robinson could exercise the right to challenge the credibility of the witnesses against him. Judge Graff said the time for challenging witnesses would come later. So no fly, and we don't need to have him in there. And they say he could face the death penalty. Casale said evidence made public to date in court filings suggests prosecutors have an overwhelming case. This seems like the proverbial slam dunk at this stage of the case, where the only issue is whether there's a sound basis for moving forward with the trial on the merits. Meaning it's so obvious he did it. It's like, it seems as if he's got almost no chance. A death sentence is an option in Utah only when a crime has aggravating circumstances. Prosecutors will argue in Robinson's case that Kirk's shooting endangered others in attendance. So that would be an aggravating factor to justify a death sentence, a potential death sentence. Now, I believe he can actually try and prove that there was no risk to other people. There were no, although I don't know how he would establish that in this case. But part of what this is about is trying to get death penalty off the table. But given the nature of the circumstance here, I don't think that he's going to be successful in that regard. Robinson's attorneys tried to block the death penalty. State District Judge Tony Graff said recently that prosecutors violated his restrictions on talking outside the courtroom when Deputy Utah County Attorney Christopher Ballard told a media outlet his office had ample evidence to convict Tyler Robinson of killing Charlie Kirk. Robinson's lawyers argued that he's trying to influence potential jurors. People see them like, oh, okay, they really do have him dead to rights. As a punishment, they wanted the judge to block prosecutors from seeking the death penalty. Graff said that was too severe and that Ballard's comments weren't malicious. He said any potential bias issues could be addressed by expanding the juror pool or more closely questioning potential jurors. Make sure they didn't hear him. Eric Kirk had said that she forgives him. We don't know about this. All right, let's get to what actually happened today. So Eric Kirk showed up at the courthouse for the preliminary hearing. 3 men escorted her into the building. 7 minutes before the hearing was expected to begin, Charlie Kirk's parents, Robert and Catherine Kirk, arrived separately. State District Judge Tony Graff is going over his rules for the hearing, including some limitations on the use of technologies such as cell phones and laptops. Graff says the court has the duty to protect and uphold the rights of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing the Turning Point USA founder, and those of Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. Anthony Lausenhausen, look at this. Look at this. See, I love this. Back-to-back messages from brand new user Anthony, brand new follower, Anthony Lautzenheiser. Anthony Lautzenheiser. Welcome to the following, Anthony. Thank you for joining. To Grimsbar, who's been here for 50 months. Wow. Thank you so much. I used to poke fun at Grimsbar. I used to, as my people would say, jepper him by using his first name, because I know him long enough that I know his first name. He doesn't really use it anymore. So, and I said, but it seemed to really be bothering him. So I stopped doing it. So right now, there's no way you'll hear from me that his name is actually Timothy. Sorry. It's been so long, Tim. I miss you, Tim. Okay, it's not. V-Sing says we talking yet about index futures selling off right after Trump accounts open and POTUS was bragging about shorts getting blown the F up. I'm trading him live. Might end up being an all-nighter. Well, go get him. I hope you make a killing. Kimmy sent you Mike Lee's post on Mitch. Why has no Senate friend or colleague gone or even tried to visit him in the hospital? That's normal behavior. That's a good question. That's a very good question. Why has no one tried to visit him? Many is starting speaking about Mitch McConnell's condition because we know nothing of that. Well, I mean, maybe Mike Lee is like, I don't really like Mitch McConnell. Am I supposed to go out there and tell you that? I hate that guy? You would think someone would go and visit him. This guy has some friends there, right? You would think. You would think. I don't know. All right, let's get. I gotta move along. All right. They say as many as 50 exhibits are expected in a hearing. Donald Trump Jr. showed up for the preliminary hearing. First witness called was Chris Bagley. He was an officer at Utah Valley University when Kirk was shot. His parents were there, and he described the university campus where Kirk was shot using a drone image of Utah Valley University taken in December to set the scene, including parking garage and campus buildings. Robinson's defense team says he hasn't adequately shown that he took the photo or that it accurately depicts the campus. Graf says that Bagley has firsthand knowledge, so I'm going to allow them to use it for now. Bagley says the day of the shooting, he got to work around 11 a.m. using aerial drone photos to describe the layout, including where there's a clear line of sight or view, because he has to establish in order to show, probable cause that the guy was able to hit Kirk from where he was allegedly positioned. He said he could see the right side of Charlie Kirk as the conservative activist spoke on campus. Kirk was answering a question when Bagley heard a gunshot, he said, and chaos erupted. People got up and started running. In a few moments, Bagley says he heard officers over the radio say that someone was in custody, so he began assessing the crowd of injuries. Then he began working to preserve the crime scene. Spotted a pistol holster that had been left on the ground, but knew that he had heard a rifle shot rather than a pistol shot. So this is the sort of thing, the pistol holster is the sort of thing that we should call them, we'll call Candace the Candace folk. We'll just call them the candy people. Okay, I'm going to call them the candy people. All the people who are desperately invested in the conspiracy theories around this. And look, the conspiracy theorists could be right. I'm not saying they're definitely wrong. I'm sure there might be some conspiracy out there which has potential to be true. But the candy people would say, why is there a pistol holster on the ground? What's going on? So he spotted a pistol holster and left on the ground, but knew that he had heard a rifle shot rather than a pistol. Bagley says he spotted something out of place on a rooftop. Before a 15-minute recess Monday, so Bagley said that shortly after the shooting last September, he ran up a public staircase to reach the roof of the Low-C Center building, which he knew had a clear line of sight to the location where Kirk was sitting when he was shot. On the roof, he spotted something that looked out of place to me. Bagley said it was red and black screwdriver. So that's what he saw there. You sort of have to ask yourself, if he knew after the shot was fired that was a spot that had a clear line of vision, why didn't he know before he was shot? That's a reasonable question to ask to actually stop it from happening. So Kirk's parents and Erica left the courtroom before the shooting was described. About a minute after UVU police officer Bagley started testifying about Kirk's arrival on campus, Kirk's mother, Catherine, clutched a pocket-sized packet of tissues. She'd been listening to the proceedings with her head bowed and her eyes closed. Erica had been leaning her head on the shoulder of a blonde woman sitting to her right. Tyler Robinson has meanwhile been sitting quietly between his attorneys at the defense table, looking at exhibits on a monitor and occasionally taking notes. Wearing gray suit, pale pink shirt, and a tie with his wrist shackled to a chain around his waist. And they had a 15-minute break. Then the officer describes seeing a sniper pad disturbance in gravel rooftop. So former UVU police officer Bagley said he saw a disturbance on the gravel rooftop of the Losey building that looked like a sniper pad, where someone might have been lying in a position that would allow them to shoot a weapon. The disturbance included spots that looked like they were made of 2 elbows and 2 knees, as well as a spot where someone might have laid a gun down. He then realized he probably did not have a shooter in custody. Bagley said, so he called to have the building searched and secured. He also went to watch some surveillance video which showed an individual run to the edge of the roof and drop down. He found a shoe print in the grass on the north side of the building, he said. And now we get to cross-examination. Catherine Nestor, cross-examining UVU Officer Bagley, asked Bagley if he ever attended a meeting to discuss how officers would keep people safe on the day of the shooting. Bagley said he hadn't. He said there were 6 officers working that day, thousands of people attending the event. There were no metal detectors being used to screen the crowd and no drones being used for security. He also said there were no law enforcement officers on the roof, stairway, or walkway when he arrived. Utah is an open carry state, and Utah allows adults to carry guns openly or conceal them without a permit, though there are restrictions people ages 18 to 20. There are some exceptions at public colleges, however. Utah UVU says it follows state law and allows gun owners to carry a concealed firearm if they have a permit. Nestor was questioning Bagley about the report he wrote after the shooting, including his observation about finding an empty pistol holster on the ground after the crowd fled. Bagley acknowledged that he never took custody of the holster and doesn't know if it was ever fingerprinted. And then we get to lunch. And then Bagley was done testifying, and David Hull, an investigator, took the stand. David Hull. He now works for the Utah Department of Public Safety. He says he investigated major crimes when he worked the State Bureau of SBI, State Bureau of Investigation. And he explained how SBI helps other law enforcement agencies process crime scenes and investigate after serious incidents. He wasn't familiar with Charlie Kirk or UVU before he was asked to help with the shooting investigation, so he's basically portrayed as being very impartial. Defense attorney Catherine Nestor asked former UVU police officer Chris Bagley about security plans, body camera footage, and the evidence found on the day Charlie Kirk was shot. Bagley said he wasn't giving any tactical or operational plans for the event. I don't know why this is coming up now. We're already into David Hull, but after the shooting, Bagley looked on the roof of the Losey building, but says he didn't find any spent casings at that point. His body camera stopped recording while he was on the roof. That's the sort of minor little thing, which you know that the Candy fans love. And they're like, aha, you see, his battery died. It died. I don't know. He didn't go back to the roof once his body camera was charged because it was too chaotic. He said about 27 minutes of body camera footage from that day. Judge allows statement verifying video of event from woman who isn't in courts. David Sturgo, with the Utah County Attorney Office, is asking for former SBI agent Hull to describe the evidence he collected during the shooting investigation. So he said, phone tips members of the public poured in. Many cell phone videos of the shooting taken by people who attended. Prosecutors want to present some of those videos, including one from a woman who also wrote a statement confirming she took it. So whenever you're going to be introducing evidence, you want to establish the veracity of that evidence, not that it's something that was created by AI or other manipulation. So you sort of want to have the people testifying that they shot this video, it accurately reflects what they saw that day, things of that nature. To establish the veracity of the video that's being presented as being evidence, so we can trust that it's not crap. It's going to be confusing the trier of fact. You might notice I keep saying trier of fact. The reason I use that term is because sometimes that just means who's deciding what facts they believe to be true versus what facts they think to be false. When you're at a jury trial, that is the role of the jury. They're not deciding the law. They're deciding the facts. Was this person on the roof? Was he not on the roof? They are deciding whether they believe beyond a reasonable doubt he was on the roof. That's one fact. Whether or not he took the shot. That's another fact. They're deciding beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes or no, did that happen? So they're deciding these facts. Sometimes those facts, when it comes to questions of law of should we let this person come and testify, given XYZ versus ABC, so that's for a judge to decide. That's a ruling of law. That's decided by the judge, always. But sometimes the judge wears both hats. They're not just deciding the law, but as in this context, is the trier of fact. Not only is he deciding the law, but he's deciding who do I believe about these facts. So that's why I refer to the trier of fact, because I'm laying out for you general rules about how court operates, and whoever the trier of fact is, whether it's the jury at a jury trial or the judge in this hearing, they're the trier of fact. They're the ones, and that's why I'm using that term specifically. So when you have someone coming in there, and when you want to say, are we going to let this evidence in, you want to make sure it's valid evidence and not going to be confusing the trier of fact. So to say that he's going to just let this evidence come in and saying, I don't need to establish that, I don't need to have her come in and testify to the truth of that she recorded it, and establish that there's reason to trust the content of this video, because he's basically trusting the prosecutors they didn't make this up themselves and they weren't stupid. And at trial, they'll be able to bring her in and she will say that. He's sort of trusting them to that degree. Defense attorney Catherine Nestor also has objected to the video and the written statement, saying they shouldn't be admitted in part because the woman isn't present in court to testify about them. Difficult for the court to assess a witness's reliability when the witness isn't there to be cross-examined. Graff says the evidence is allowable under rule governing reliable hearsay. So that's why he's calling it reliable hearsay, because the video basically is taking the role of testifying, right? Because when you're sharing a video of something, this video is basically telling you what the roof looks like, but it's with a picture that's worth 1,000 words. So when you have a video playing, it's 1,000,000 words about what the place looks like. Well, how do you know it's true if you don't have anyone to actually verify it? So that's why he's saying this is reliable hearsay, basically saying that he's confident that at trial, the prosecutor will be able to verify this is valid. This is a valid video, a reliable video, by having the woman come up there and testify that she shot the video and that it wasn't tampered with, etc. So that's why he's referring to it as reliable hearsay. State Judge Tony Graff is considering several things when deciding whether graphic videos of the shooting and other evidence should be published, a legal term that means shown in courts. That's correct. That is what published means. In some cases, he has found that videos can be shown in court and on the live stream of the hearing. In other cases, he is allowing video to be introduced as evidence that says it cannot be shown in the courtroom or on the live stream. So some of this stuff he doesn't want to become sensationalized and shared with the world. So he, as the trier of fact, is looking at it, but in order to not have it sensationalized and have potentially poison a juror down the road, so he's not letting it get shared with the public. Also, sometimes if it's too graphic, they don't want it, out of respect for the decedent, Charlie Kirk, or their family, they're not gonna, they'll just keep it from the public seeing it. They'll share it with just the jury, but not, they'll publish it to the jury for the jury to see it, but keep it hidden from everyday folks like you and me. Tyler Robinson's defense team has argued that some of the videos may have been altered with clips taken from longer videos. They also said some of the evidence may violate Robinson's due process rights. But the prosecution team has generally taken the stance the records are public and should be published in court. In some cases, they've asked the redacted versions to be published. An attorney for the press has argued the public has a right to see the exhibits since they will be used by the court to decide whether the case proceeds. The judge is also considering whether some of the video or written evidence is so prejudicial that it would make it hard to find impartial jurors if the case goes to trial. And then they got to the afternoon break. Much of the past hour has been spent with prosecutors introducing evidence collected by state investigators in the first hours after Kirk was shot. Before the break, SBI agent Hull described Kirk's team loaded him into a vehicle and rushed him to a hospital immediately after the shooting. Kirk was declared dead at the hospital, and an ME was called to conduct an autopsy. This is setting up for the ME to come in. Then he describes the search for the shooter. And David Hull says his primary focus September 10th was to identify the person who had been seen on the roof at UVU. Investigators reviewed hundreds of hours of video, including university surveillance footage, to try and track his movements. Investigators also interviewed people in the hopes of identifying the person who jumped off the roof. Washington County officials later contacted investigators to report that an individual had come forward with Tyler Robinson's name. So that made things a lot quicker. Then the attorneys, Nestor and and Sturgill. So Sturgill asked Hull to look around the courtroom and point out the suspect he identified in his investigation. Defense team objected. Nestor told the judge that it amounted to unduly suggestive in-court identification, violating his constitutional rights. Nestor says there's a lot of case law that says asking a witness to identify a defendant in a courtroom, particularly when that defendant is the only person sitting at a table with defense attorneys, is unduly suggestive, essentially tainting the identification. The judge called attorneys on both sides up to the bench to probably discuss the law on this. When the discussion was over, the judge said the court record will show that Robinson was identified. So there you go. Judge Graff says he will not admit a video exhibit after the defense team raised concerns that have been altered and there was no one to talk about exactly what was changed. The video in question appears to consist of a variety of clips taken from different sources. It's possible the video could, meaning like you could see one person and then it just sort of runs into a different vantage point or something like that. Is likely the scenario here. It's possible the video could still be admitted later, but prosecution team would likely have to have a witness explain exactly how it was created and where the clips originated. Then you have doorbell video. Prosecutors have played a series of video clips taken from Utah residents' doorbell camera. Clips showed a vehicle parking across the street from the home with the camera, person leaving the vehicle, and then a person returning to the vehicle before it drives away. Former SBI agent David Hull says investigators believe the camera captured Tyler Robinson. So we think that's Tyler. And then we get a 10-minute break. And shortly after the break, prosecutors request the court end for the day. Said they wanted to spend the evening preparing a copy of the video that they want to introduce into evidence. They plan to introduce a copy of the video that doesn't have added markings, including a blur and circle, which apparently that's a sign it's been tampered with. Earlier during the hearing, State District Judge Tony Graff declined to admit a video in evidence because it had been altered. Robinson's defense team says they don't mind ending 15 minutes earlier than planned and resume tomorrow at 9 a.m. Utah time. So there you go. That's what happened today. Should I continue streaming this tomorrow? That's my question. You want to join me, Branko? If I stream this tomorrow? You want to join me? Yeah? All right, what the heck? I'm going to set the stream up. I know we haven't hit our goal. I know. We'll see how it goes. I will invite Andrew out tomorrow. Weird how James Earl Ray Jr. was convicted of assassination of Martin Luther King without any body-worn camera video. I know. It's like the body, well, if his body camera died, that means he totally is not the killer. He's innocent. It's like, dude, we convicted 1 million people before such a thing was invented. So yes, I know I set it up as a goal. And to be fair, I did not think we were going to reach the goal because I started late. When I start late, I know it's hard to reach the goal. So I'm not sure if I'll start at 11 o'clock sharp. I might start 11:30. That's when it is. I might start 11:30 and go like a little faster. The idea being to like that we catch all the testimony, all the stuff that's coming up there, and maybe leave a little wiggle room to play things faster. So this way it can sort of be crushed in there. See what I'm saying? My concerns about starting at 11:30 is that I feel like a bunch of you who are interested in watching this are going to find yourselves jumping in with one of my competitors there, who are many of whom are very talented. I'm not looking to disparage them, but each of us are going to be giving our own different contributions, and we very much differ from each other. But I kind of feel as if this type of hearing is probably best presented a little bit condensed, which means instead of having an 8-hour stream, which is what I see several of my friends and rivals, and I mean that in the most loving and admiring way that I can say it, they got these 8-hour streams. And I'm not going to kid you. I'm not doing an 8-hour stream. That's not happening. Now, court normally runs for 8 hours, which means that, it would go from 11 my time, because I'm 2 hours ahead of Utah. It would go from 11 to 7 p.m. Now, I certainly plan, I would probably break it into 2. But I think if I start like a little later and basically running through, I think it's in all of our interests. It's my interest, it's in your interest, it's in everyone's interest. But for the fact that I know that folks will see, in their algorithms, these other people who I like, admire, and respect, and I consider friends, you'll see them streaming, and you're not going to be like, I don't know about, Joe's not starting to 11:30. What's happening there? But now I'm telling you, if you see me starting 11:30, which is what I'm leaning very heavily toward doing, that's because I plan on actually carving out as much of the chaff so I can give you the golden nugget of wheat, the creamy, rich wheat, and really focus on actually the engaging part of the hearing. So that's what I'm going to actually do. I'm telling you right now, heck it, let's do it. I'm starting tomorrow 11:30. There you go. I know we didn't reach our goal. I'm calling goal anyway. Sort of, because I'm not as committed as I would have been if we did have a goal. So tomorrow morning, 11:30 my time, 9:30 Utah time, I do plan on streaming the trial. And I will see you all then. So make sure you're here. And you can start somewhere else. Just make sure you get in here. Because what do you need to, you want to spend 8 hours? 8 hours? I don't think you do. So I'll be able to rush through it, like a little bit, and then take a break by lunch and then come back in here. I think that's the way to do it. That's what we're going to do. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. Tyler Robinson, tomorrow, 11:30. Make sure you're here. Goodlawgic.locals.com is where you'll get your links and stuff like that. Don't forget to check out the merch. We got a special that's going on, right? The whole special, 25% off. All you got to do is just hit that code USA250. That's good stuff. That's definitely good stuff. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything over here. And I really should get to work on setting up that stream, right? Definitely need to get to work on that. Okay. What else do I have for you? Let me wasn't meant for you. It's meant for they, them. Let me see what I have here. Yeah. Thank you all for joining me. Till tomorrow. Good night. And Godspeed.
The plane is landing. The show is almost over. All that's left for you is this song. Joe left the studio. He's probably drinking Diet Mountain Dew. Maybe he's watching funny videos on YouTube, or playing chess, or doing Jewy things Jews do. We hope you had fun, and maybe you learned something. You hit like and you subscribe. Leave a comment if you want to show some love. That would be cool. You can be cool. Leaving comments is cool. So till next time, please be sure Stay away from lab meat. It was never meant for you. It's meant for they or them or comrades, sparkle hugs. And most importantly, do not eat Z-bugs. Good night and Godspeed. Good night and Godspeed.